I'm Andrew. Welcome to One Shots Tavern, a TTRPG podcast where we seek out new ways to tell your story through different systems and games. And today we are talking to animator and game designer Tom Lavery about their comedy TTRPG zine, Horse Majure. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Wonderful to be here.
All month long, we are talking to Zine Month collaborators and creators about their projects, and I love to dive into where people got started in RPGs as well as how they get into Zine Month. What's your story in getting into the hobby as well as all the way up until now launching your first TTRPG project on Kickstarter with Horse Majure?
So I suppose my intro to the hobby was my dad when I was a little kid. He used to be a huge Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer head. He was a huge nerd, which I inherited gleefully. And I would say that took a sort of a lull through my adolescence, not when video games sort of became the center stage. But then I had a huge reemergence when I went to university and discovered a whole clan of nerds and beloved friends that were all deeply invested in Dungeons and Dragons, as I'm sure is most people's introductions to RPGs. That was 3.5, I believe, when I started in that hobby. Shortly after that, I was introduced to things like LARP and Vampire the Masquerade, and that was like, oh my god, you could do other things besides being an elf. Oh my god. And then that carried on as I started to like run my own games and start to fiddle around with my own designs. And my introduction to Zine Quest was during the pandemic, I believe. And it was when Tim Hutchings of Thousand Year Vampire fame introduced his very bizarre, very small esoteric project, Quest, a fantastic longing for adventure, which was this sort of very bizarre, more traditional angled zine that very much embraced the punk aesthetic, and it was like derived of 3 separate games all layered across each other with different colored inks that when you look at it through like those blue and red 3D goggles.
I've heard about this. Yeah.
And it was the most like I've always known Tim's games to be very out there and experimental, and I love them for it. This was the first time I'd heard of like this super narrowed down indie focus, do whatever you want mindset, and that's when I was sort of introduced to the wider community. I just sort of fell in love with it, and I was following it for a few years, and this year I just really wanted to be involved as well.
I'm newer to understanding like the deeper punk history of zines, and like I find it fascinating. I want a documentary all about it, like that's where I'm at. And it's like I remember maybe a year ago at this time where I was learning more than just like the like half sheet of paper size zines. Like there was these little ones that you make out of a single piece of paper. And then I saw somebody on TikTok that made like a funny little song, and he like beat the crap out of paper and collaged a bunch of stuff onto it, and he like folded it up, and he had made a song about how to fold this zine out of like an A4 piece of paper. And I was like, well, I'm doing this with my kids now because they always want to make little booklets and stuff with my like saddle stapler and stuff like that. And so I was like, oh, I'll just start getting good at folding it. And so now like both of my kids and their cousins stuff, they're like, can you make me one of those little books? And I'm like, absolutely. So like I became kind of obsessed with it just around the house, and but like learning the history and like that's like what people would do. They'd make these booklets like this style. And then even learning, I think there's again through TikTok, there was like another creator that's like, really got into the side of how these zines could be a resource in smaller communities and like really like build connections and share information that isn't normally shared and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, this is way more rock and roll than I ever realized. I just thought it was like, oh, mostly political stuff or like simple, but it's like, no, like these are really practical things, not just political. I mean, those matter too, but like they're really practical of like how to mend your jeans, all the way to like a sewing zine, all the way to RPGs. And it's like for connection and being with people. I think I was on stream and I was just scrolling through like day one of Zine Quest on Kickstarter. and I just launched my own project, and I saw your thumbnail, and it was all like trashed, respectfully,
Yeah.
just
Yep.
like
Yep.
that trashy, like collage, chaotic aesthetic, and I'm like, click. It was the third thing, the first thing of somebody that I didn't know that I backed because I was like, this is so
Thank you very
cool, and
much.
it, you including these adorable little. Okay, so I'm not going to pitch the game for you. I'm going to let you pitch it, but your animations and the art, and then the fact that it was a single
Mm.
page and really embraced the history of what these zines can be was immediately attractive to me because I feel like a fraud because I make books, right? Like I'm on the other end of the zine quest spectrum where I'm like, am I allowed to do
Well, I
this?
wouldn't feel too bad about
Um,
that because on the flip side of that coin, I don't know how to do that. Like that's like
yeah,
this is also
yeah,
born from a place of severe limitation. So like
mm-hmm,
it pays off in that sense that
yeah,
I would love to get to the stage of making full-on books and wider scale
yeah,
printing, but I find a big part of the beauty of ZineQuest or ZineQuest is that anyone can jump in. Anyone
mm-hmm,
can, with the bare materials and bare knowledge, make something. And that's what
yeah.
inspired me to finally take that plunge.
I think that February is becoming my like favorite time of the year, legitimately, because I mean, I get to see so many people jumping over what normally feels like an astronomically high
Mm,
barrier, right? Like they're just like, yeah, fuck it, like I'm gonna do it, and they make something, and like, I'll be real, some people fantastically fail, and it sucks, and I cannot imagine. I haven't had that happen
mm,
yet. God willing, it doesn't happen. But like that's where like you have to. That's the experiential part of like learning. Like we were talking right before recording, and like you're currently like 16,000% funded,
yes, it sounds borderline
right?
fraudulent, but yes, it's done quite well. Um,
Right. So like I think it was like $1 USD or two
two
for
dollars
you,
Canadian.
and that's the hardest part is the understanding what people are backing and what the financials actually should be, what's a good and realistic goal for
Mm,
yourself, as well as what will people be able to actually pay towards. Am I doing
mm,
advertising in advance? Like there's so much of the business side of it that's overwhelming for people. And so I say for a lot of people that are like new to marketing, I'm just like, set your goal, like where you would be able to make the
mm,
project. That's the point, right? Like this is not about huge business, like this is not the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter,
mm,
right? Like this is, like you're getting started in this. Set your goal for what lets you produce it, whether you need to pay an editor if your book's, you know, closer to like 20 something pages, if you need to pay an artist because you don't feel equipped to do that yourself, like having some money set aside to pull that off and then get your first print run out, that's all you
mm.
need. So like setting your goal in that realistic area is so important. And then I see yours and I'm like, this is correct. Like the $1 amount. I was like, it's
Yeah.
made because you already had the game
Uh-huh.
made. You've done the art
Hmm.
yourself, and you're giving it to people as a accessible print yourself, like print run of it, and like the barrier to entry for you is pretty low, and then also the accessibility for anybody to get it in their
Mm.
hands is very low
Well,
as
on
well.
top of that, there's a free version available at tomlevery.com, like a free one page. It's
Yeah.
not the zine edition, but it's just
Mm,
a single page to look at, like on an iPad or a computer screen or whatever.
yeah.
So anyone can play it right now and just dive in. Because again, like you said, the most important part was just to get it in front of people and have people
Right.
playing it and talking about it, and that's all I cared about. So when it came to setting a goal target, as long as one
Yeah.
person saw it, $2 is fine by me. I was
Yeah.
preparing for like
It's
abject
awesome.
failure.
Last time my goal was um you know a lot lower, and that was just, again, it was out of fear.
Mm,
It's out of like, will anybody give a shit about my project? Will they see it? Like, you don't know. And I think, again, at least from my experience, I'm not gonna speak for everybody. because that would be horrible. But like, there's a lot of eyes on
Mm,
projects, and it's just like if you have a cool project that is evocative, people are going to see it and they're going to back it, and like you're going to get like the Kickstarter engine of
mm.
promotion works quite well. There's a reason why people call it like the Kickstarter
Yeah,
crack. Like it's hard to leave Kickstarter to do things in a different way because they do a good job of marketing your game within their site. They have people that come there, and it's kind of accessible for people. Don't get me wrong, grandma still doesn't know how to use
true. Yep.
Kickstarter. But like people are there and they're looking, and there's a really good chance to pop off. Like for me, on my first one last year, I had not published anything in the
Mm,
space. It was the first time that I was doing it. I just started the podcast with DJ in January of last year, and we didn't have an audience,
mm.
right? So like, didn't expect anything, and it went very well for both of us. We actually both on our separate projects ended up with 118 backers.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
so like that was like to realize there are like what if 118 people were in the room with
Hmm.
me and they were all excited about my project? Like if I'm at a small little art
Mm,
show and 118 people gave a
hmm.
shit. That is like that's when people get into the throes of a Kickstarter, that is something I try and remind anyone I talk to. It's like there are real
Hmm.
people that said yes to your creative project.
It's not just a small number on
So
a
for
screen. It's imagine an auditorium and fill those
right.
seats, and that's how many people are captivated by what you're saying and what you're trying to make.
And that ties back to like again the historical ethos of
Mm.
zines. It's like this is about community, this is about real people, this is about sharing what we love. So I want to turn it over to you, Tom. I've done enough preaching about how much I love Zine Month. I, like I said, found your project and was immediately in love. It's hilarious. Pitch me Horse Majure.
Sure. So Horse Majure is a game about working together as two people disguised in a horse costume looking for a delicious apple. And typically you're doing so in a place where horses aren't normal. Like you wouldn't normally see a horse. So therein lies the rub. Um, the rules state that you are a horse and your commitment to that is absolute. No matter the circumstance or why you're doing it, what's going on, doesn't matter. You're a horse. So stick with it.
Yep.
And good horse behavior is rewarded, and poor horse decisions are discouraged. That's the gist. And I wanted to make a very sort of simple and thematic system because at the end of the day, I'm very pro rules light games because
Yeah.
all we're doing is making stories and having fun. And uh, I find that the quicker you can get into that and the quicker you can start having your players bouncing ideas off of you, the more fun you're going to have, especially when it comes to one-shot stuff. Like if you're talking wider campaigns, obviously having those systems, having those built-in mechanisms is part of the joy, part of the game. But for goofing around and having fun, I don't want to have people reading for about 15 minutes trying to work out what to do. I want them to be like kicking and farting and running upstairs and falling over, you know? Um,
Yep.
so the game system is super simple. It's sort of loosely based on the Powered by the Apocalypse system in that it's just 2d6, but rather than rolling them both yourself, each part of the horse, the front end and the back end, are rolling one dice each. And you're trying to get matching dice numbers. So, like, roll double sixes, roll double ones. That's a perfect roll. So, whatever you wanted to happen on that turn, that's going to happen and better than you expected. Like, it's going to go your way. One dice off, so like a six and a five, you pass. That's a successful roll. Two numbers off, so say a six and a four, that's a mixed success. So something goes right, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a complication. So say if you were trying to go up some stairs, you've gone up the stairs successfully together as a horse, best a horse can, but you may have knocked over like a vase and it caused a ruckus and alerted someone, and that the GM will then narrate that. Three off, so um, six and a three. That's a failed result. You're no closer to the delicious apple. You got to think of something else. Come up with a new idea. 4 off, critical failure. You failed. You're no closer to the apple, and the horse tolerance meter goes up 1 level. And the horse
Uh-huh.
tolerance meter.
And that functions kind of as like the health bar for the encounter,
Exactly, yeah.
right?
So, because essentially the way I think about it is that everyone has a predetermined level of horse tolerance. Like,
Right.
be that a horse itself, or for instance, if you saw 2 people in a horse costume go like
Uh-huh.
you're at the hospital, right? You're waiting for an
Yeah.
appointment. A horse costumed pair walk through the lobby. You want nothing to do with that. You don't want to engage with that. You don't want to speak to
Damn
them. Yeah.
kids.
You're like, oh, whatever that is, that's not my business.
Yeah.
Keeping out of that. That would be the normal reaction of most people. You'd hope that
Yeah.
it's some weird kind of marketing initiative or a prank or someone's doing
Right.
something nothing to do with you. But eventually, the more that horses around and kicks things over and causes calamity, your tolerance is going to hit a breaking point, and someone's going to get involved. Security, the police,
Huh.
doesn't matter. That's it. Your horse days are done. End of the game. Um,
Oh
However,
man.
5 off, so a 6 and a 1, the worst dice roll you can get. That's a catastrophic failure. And when
Oh
that
no.
happens, your costume rips in half,
Ah.
and it's just pandemonium. 2 halves of a horse running around in mad chaos. The illusion's broken. You know you're not a horse anymore, and you've got precisely 3 turns, 3 additional attempts to reconnect, or the game's over. That's the gist of it there. So it's just, there's however long you can maintain the illusion that you are a horse and keep on that goal of getting that apple. That's how long. That's the goal of the game.
I'm sold. I'm ready to play. Early before really getting into the indie space, really just insular for D&D for myself. I saw an actual play about Numenera. Are you familiar with
Rings
Numenera?
a bell.
It's a weird sci-fi setting by Monica Games, and it was their pilot that kind of had them launch their cipher
Right.
system. And the setting itself was so cool looking, but I had no touchstones that I could like really hold on
Mm.
to communicate like this weird sci-fi setting to players and potential people that would hang out and check it out other than just like read this giant tome. And it was difficult for me because I wanted to play
Mm.
it, but I myself even knew like I don't know how to run this. Like I don't know how to embody this world yet because I haven't seen movies or shows that feel anything like
Hmm.
it, and I don't fully understand the genre. And that was frustrating because I loved the art and it looked cool. Ended up falling in love with the system itself and ran their setting agnostic version of it for a long
Hmm.
time. Big fan. Listeners of the podcast want me to shut up about Cypher now. Um, but basically, the reason why I'm bringing this up is it lacked the cultural touchstones for me to fully engage with the
Hmm.
narrative. I crave that in games. You know, it's like the art can do a lot, the mechanics can do a lot, but if you lack that ability, especially if you have to run the
Hmm.
game to like lock
Yeah.
in and know exactly what should happen to facilitate the narrative storytelling that we're all doing, it's difficult to
Hmm.
play. Um, the second I saw your page, I'm like, I'm in. I know the whole game. I don't need to read it. I don't need to know anything
Yep.
else. I know exactly how to play this game. And it's just because it's ridiculous, yet like playfully familiar. And it's even the idea of like the way you describe the horse tolerance meter and like people just putting up with
Hmm.
antics, like all of that makes so much sense. I would have zero prep time to run this
Mm.
game. You know, like it's just like we're going off to the races, if you will. Tell me a little bit about the process of getting to this point where like you've made the game, it exists, you put together the art for it. I know you're an animator as a
Hmm.
background prior to this. So that definitely helps you in terms of like having the ability to do the art
Hmm.
yourself. But as far as the project itself and the initial inspiration and jumping into the deep end to actually make a game, how long have these two halves of a horse been living in your brain?
Um, Honestly, the game sort of came together in a fever dream pitch in about a week. I started the middle of December on a Christmas break, and before I even go back to work, it was done. And I
Yep.
was sitting there thinking, well, I can launch this in February, and I've got a whole month to sort of just twiddle my thumbs and work out how I'm going to do that, and just like start worrying about the business part of it all. Um,
Yeah.
and like the hardest part has been marketing, I guess. Like
Yeah.
genuinely, like because it's 8 pages. Like there's only so much of it I
Hmm.
can be showing every day and being like, look at
Yeah.
this big apple, yeah. Like,
Yep.
um, thankfully I've got a friend, a dear friend Dana, who's like she's a small business owner nearby, and she's an expert at marketing. And she just said, "Send me every video of your dogs, and I'll post something every day of just your dogs, and say back Horse Majure. It won't make sense. It doesn't matter." And I was like, "Oh, great, yeah, that's perfect." My most beloved ideas and projects tend to come almost completely formed, or the joke happens first, and
Yeah.
then I chip away until something's playable. This is not my first design attempt. This is like I've loved making games, RPGs, board games for years. And the biggest obstacle I've always ran into has been like scale creep and scope creep and
Yeah.
projects just getting wildly out of hand to a point where even if I make something I'm happy with, I sit there and go, well, I have no idea how to get this out there. I have no idea. It's too big for anyone to like look at and go, I get this. Or for a
Yep.
publisher to be like, I'll take a risk on that. Uh, just having this mission over the last few years to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller
Hmm.
has been the biggest sort of relief in my design process so far. Like even with Horse Majure, there's some elements to it that I stress over. Like I've had some friends play the game a few times now, and it's been a joy to hear about the stories coming out of it. It's exactly what I wanted. But as it stands, there are no hard and fast built-in systems or rules in terms of how to lower the horse tolerance meter, right?
Yeah.
There's no like
Yeah.
recovery mechanic necessarily. While most of the actions require a dice roll, there are player powers that succeed regardless of circumstance. So player one will always be able to neigh or bite. Like if you bite, you will bite. If you neigh, you will neigh.
Yep.
And player two will always be able to kick or fart. Those are those powers will never fail. You will succeed. The consequences may differ, but you will do
Yeah.
it, and that's critical. So, like, if your host tolerance meter is at a 4 and you're about to lose the game, you can just try and kick and bite and fart your way through the rest of the mission to keep your head above water. And my,
Because I feel like at that point it's not about tolerance; it's about just avoidance, right?
I'm getting
Like
near
they're
that.
it's not about tolerance anymore. They're just trying to get out of your way.
Exactly. But I had my friends call me in the middle of a game to ask if a whinny counted as a neigh. And I had to say, ultimately,
Oh.
yes, it's still just a horse noise, arguably more of a stealthy one. So, yes, a whinny is a small neigh. That's fine. But just the fact that I had these, like, very limited pages, these very small areas to
Yeah.
write in, I didn't have the space to make clarifications or explanations or rules. I had to
Yeah.
leave it very loose and open for interpretation and allow and encourage GMs to sort of
Yeah.
come up with their own ideas. It's one of the few short lines I was able to put in there was good horse behavior should be rewarded. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
that carries more weight than I expected it to. Because it just sort of allows the GM to go, yes, that's great. And you know what?
Right.
Here's a little prize for you. And that's sort of the ethos of it. Like the limitations opened up that freedom.
For any game that we're playing, it's the goal is to facilitate a specific type of narrative style. It's a trope, it's a genre, it's something that we're trying to play into and reinforce because that's how we tell
Yeah.
stories, right? Like that's just how our brains work. That's how we engage with the world around us. We lean towards what's familiar, but we're also creative within those spaces because those boundaries give us somewhat of like a protection. Like, okay, I know that we're not doing this is not horror horse majeur, albeit you could do that. And so I just think that when you're able to reward the players or have players instinctually feel like they know how to reinforce the genre and the narrative, rules adjudications don't matter. Like it really doesn't at that point, because to the, them reading through and reading that line, they go, okay, that's the point of the game, and it's just doubling down. It's the yes and kind of structure of this hobby
100%.
that it should be encouraged.
100% agree. And you touched on horror Horse Majure. One of the maps that you get with the $5 tier is a haunted house. So you can angle that as creepy as you want. It's the haunted house of Granny Smith. And
oh man, honestly though, that would make an incredible horror film.
I think so.
Like, it's got like the ridiculous premise of like two people just dicking around in a horse costume, and it goes horribly wrong. And that tolerance meter goes from being a tolerance meter and just to actually a health bar.
Survival meter. Just
or like a ghost that, or it's like Saw all of a sudden, where like they have to be a horse. Like, and that's their punishment.
Oh god.
Like, you have to. Oh my god.
Stella, you have to work together.
Exactly.
God.
The GM becomes, oh my gosh, the Saw guy. Oh man. As a person who hates those movies, I want to play that so much.
Well, for $5.
There you go. Yeah. Incredible.
The other two maps I've got for that too, because it's three maps that you get. It's a haunted house, a hospital, and the International Space Station.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what the inside of the International Space Station looks like, so I have largely made it up. But hoping that the spirit follows through.
Oh.
I just love the idea of two people in a horse costume in zero gravity, just like interrupting delicate geopolitical space science.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. So we talked a bit about the mechanics of biting, farting, neighing, and kicking. I believe I saw somewhere you can play with multiple horses.
Yes, absolutely. There's no reason you can't. It's bare minimum. All you need is 3 people to play the game, to just have a great time with 2 friends and a GM. But there's no reason you can't have multiple horses all out going after the same apple. It could be a team effort. It could be a race. It could be
Hunger Games.
Yeah, exactly. And I had another call from friends in the middle of their game asking, like, are there any mechanics to kill the other horses? And
absolutely.
Well,
just expose them.
Said, well, keep biting. That's all I can think. Just like, if it makes sense, yes. Like, if you kick them down the stairs, make them roll to see if they split in half. If they do, that's it. Like,
incredible.
So yeah, they had a race. They were playing Night of the Proms, and they were all trying to like break into this like opera performance and try and like go backstage and find the apple. And the apple was on the tiara of the opera singer's head, and the horses like bum rush the stage and did a diving leap over it to try and bite the apple off her head. And I think one of the horses got tackled by security and split in half. So they were out, and that was like a climactic. And they were telling me like they were playing it with all these like, they had like a soundtrack pre-made, and it just matched perfectly all these like big orchestral swells and crescendo. I was like, this is perfect. Gosh. This is the best. I wish they would recorded it.
I'm picturing in your art style like 2 halves of a horse costume behind bars, like that's what happens as the last shot of this whole one shot. That you get thrown in jail, and you just see 2 people with half a
like
costume
dejected.
On. Oh man, exactly. Like, dang it.
I guess I'm not a whore.
As far as the actual Kickstarter side, you've got a couple different options for what people can back. You want to talk about what you're doing there and what people get with backing this project?
Sure. So at the very base level, $2 Canadian, you get the full zine edition of the game. You get some little cutout standees, which are featured in a lot of the artwork that I've been posting around the Kickstarter, like the goofy little horses with a line through them. And the beauty of them is that you can mix and match them, so they all link up. No matter how you put them together, they'll all sync in the middle. So there's 4 of those that come with the $2 tier, as well as on the reverse side of the zine, if you unfold it, there's a sort of bonus game. So like
Ooh,
Horse Majure
yeah.
after the races, and this is not a role-playing game. This is just a straight multiplayer racing game. So
Okay.
essentially, if you're sat there and you're going, I don't really have 2 or 3 hours to sink into a one shot. I don't have the mind to be a GM, and no one can be bothered. But you still want to just have a goofy game. I've sort of changed the system up so that the dice mechanic still works and the farting and kicking and biting still do things. But it's like if you roll a perfect roll, your pair of horse parts run to the very front position, or you can pull people back or move people
Okay.
forward. So it's just a silly sort of extra bonus game that comes with the Zine edition.
Yeah.
For $5, you get all that, and then the 3 maps I mentioned earlier. And then if you really, really wanted to support me, just because you love the concept, you love the art, there's a $50 tier, which for that I draw you your own custom little horse standee in the style as shown before. Like
Love it.
simple, silly, but customized, so you can have it be like the horse head is like your dog or whatever, or the back end is like in a wheelchair if you want that.
Yeah.
You can have a Pringles tube as a unicorn horn, whatever you want. Within reason, I'll do my best to get you your
Yeah.
custom horse. Uh,
That's a great price for a
I didn't,
commission.
to
I
be
mean,
honest,
let's be
I didn't
real.
expect a lot of attention on that level.
Yeah.
I
You got like 20
I now
people
have to
backing
draw a
it.
lot of horses. Yeah, I didn't. So
You're gonna get really good at drawing horses.
I did not expect to
Oh
have
my
to. So I'm
gosh.
gonna uh, I'm gonna do them in order as fast as I can. I still, I've got
Yeah.
a full-time job, so that's gonna have to be like
Yep.
a balancing act for me. But I'm just gonna go through it one by one, and I'm gonna send out a like a backer survey thing saying like, hey, brief description or photos of how you want
Right.
this to look. Here are some templates. Like, do you have a funny pose in mind? Here we go, and I'll just
Yeah.
knock them out one by one.
No, that's
I'm excited
awesome.
for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool when there's projects that are able to manage their rewards well. As like you mentioned earlier, like scope creep. Like I had this insane idea for what I wanted to do this year, and I shaved it all the way down to doing a
Mm,
book and doing a little workbook that goes with it. And it's like for you, it's I love the ease of it just being a digital first run, but then having simple rewards, that allow you to do a little bit more art
mm,
and deliver something special. So like I definitely commend you for having a really tight scale on all your stuff. And like this project, like you said, like you were shooting for bare
mm.
minimum, and I'm really glad that you've gotten the support you have. And everybody really should that's listening, please go back this. You can get it for not very much, and it's doing quite well.
And
Tom,
you can get it for free
I
as well.
can't
That's
wait to see
important to
what
know. Like,
else.
it
Oh
is
yeah.
available for free at tomlavery.com or on my socials. I've been posting it. Like, if you just like the sound of it and want to give it a go, please, by all means, play it for free. I know
Yeah.
$2 isn't a lot, but I also know that like it's a rough time for a lot of people, and I
Yeah.
just want people to have fun. I just want people to play the game and enjoy themselves. So don't worry necessarily about backing it.
Yeah.
If even if you don't have a Kickstarter account, like just
I mean, that's why like I'm passionate about community
Mhm.
copies, right? Like there's the reality of this horrible capitalistic machine is that we have to monetize our
Mm.
hobbies,
Yeah,
right?
it's hell.
Like that's the sad part. And it's like I just want people to play cool
Yeah.
games and tell cool stories. But like when we get the opportunity to support artists, like I think that's really special. And when we're in the spot where we can do that, like that is commendable to do. But I really like supporting artists when they have their crap available for free because they recognize that we all exist in this horrible hellscape. Um, and like I've given away so many copies of my
Mm.
game just because that's easy for people, right? Like you don't know if you're gonna like the
Sure.
game, and then people come back to after they downloaded it and they pay for it because they care. Like they're like, no, this was actually really good,
Like,
and I get to show
I
support.
wish I could back all the projects I want to back on Kickstarter. Like,
Oh
it's
yeah.
were it were I a wealthy man, I would just be
Yeah.
backing everything at top tiers and
Oh my gosh, right? Just pushing people over the funding goal
100%,
like left and right
100%.
just as much as possible.
Like,
Yeah, I
there's a
feel that.
project that I absolutely am in love with, Mission Impossible. Uh,
Yes. It's definitely in line with
yeah,
with your
Stephen,
game.
like shockingly so, by
Yeah.
Stephen Hans, and that's currently on Kickstarter as well. It hasn't reached its funding goal, and that
Oh,
absolutely
okay.
mortifies me because the special edition that he's got going on, like the box set for the game that includes like coins and meeples and all this stuff,
Yeah.
it's bare minimum cost. Like it's super super cheap, and the art is stunning. Like, and I
Incredible.
don't
Yeah.
understand how that hasn't been just gobbled up. It needs to be. So big shout out to Stephen Hans and Mission Impossible live currently. Um, please go back that one as well if you can.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I mean, there's just like the that when I look at all of the stuff coming out now in my second year of doing Zine Quest and Zine Month as a whole, there's just exponentially more creative
Hmm.
projects. You know, like there's just weird, cool, unique books coming out. And there's huge projects that are blowing through funding goals and just, doing really well. And then there's really cool projects that somehow get
Hmm.
overlooked. And like I love, being on Blue Sky and seeing how people are supporting each other and talking about each other's games and stuff. And so yeah, definitely check out a Mission Impossible. That it's Paw,
Hmm.
like
Mission Impossible.
PAW,
Yeah.
and you are raccoons in a trench coat doing capers and yeah, it's hilarious. So if you're into Horse Majure, you'd be into
Yeah.
that.
Right.
All right, so my last question, because I'm uncultured swine, where did the name Horse Majure come from? Because isn't that like that's a term, but you just switched out
It's
horse,
a
isn't
legal
it?
term, force majeure, and it's a legal term that denotes when things are derailed or situations can't like tasks can't be completed due to
Mm,
circumstances wildly out of your control. Which, in my mind, I thought, what a perfect analogy for I can't get to my doctor's appointment because there's some bell end in a horse costume blocking the game. So I kind of fell in love with the pun on that one.
love a good pun. Love the whole game as a concept. This is incredible. What do you got brewing for the future? So this is
Yeah,
done.
this is done.
I'm sure you have other games in you.
Yes, as mentioned earlier, I've got a bunch. My next Kickstarter project, my next RPG project, is a very near and dear project to my heart that I came up with over the pandemic during lockdowns, and it's a two-player pen pal map making treasure map game, if
Ooh,
that makes sense.
yeah.
Because everyone, it was so I could stay in touch with my mum, because I live in a different country, um, and I wanted to be able to send her stuff in the mail, and that's kind of the inspiration of the story. But I built like a series of like these cutout stamps, these like little rubber stamps that
Oh
all denote
wow.
like iconography and things that you can run up into on the maps. And I've got it here actually. Eventually, the gist is with the system, you make something that looks like this,
Oh my god.
and like
That's
you play
incredible.
it like you use a deck of cards and some dice, and you generate this hex map, and each one of
Yeah.
these is like a you're basically making a level for player
Uh-huh.
two to then try and accomplish. And the goal is that they then go away and they make like a little
Yeah.
journal of their mission through your map and write a little story
Yeah.
about it.
So it's like a duet solo game.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very much a
That's
it's an arts and
incredible.
crafts sort of meditative experience. It's definitely more for the crafty sort than it is like
Yeah.
a systems heavy game. Um, and yeah, that one I spent like a year working on, just like toying with. Again, like it kind of all
Mhm.
arrived at the same time, but it
Yeah.
was just a delight making all these like rubber stamps and things, which I've got. Like
Yeah.
I ended up the rubber stamps aren't part of the campaign necessarily, but I ended up making them all on
Right.
like these little linograph things and added like magnetic backs to them to just for my
Yeah.
own sake for fun. But that's a dream project. But again, obviously scope creep. That's a much
Yeah.
wider endeavor. I've also got like board games I've made that I'm trying to get published at the moment.
Oh,
This is like
sweet.
a two-player card battling dexterity game that sort of makes fun of cricket. It's called Quicket. Uh, that's what I'm
Okay.
trying to work on at the moment. I've got a solo mint tin RPG that I'm working on,
Oh, that's
and again,
awesome.
this has got like the sort of zine tiny rule book situation
Yep.
where you just like put a little character card in the back there, and you play as a little postman trying to get across a fantasy world, delivering things, and that's based on real world stuff. So like you'll be walking through the streets and
Yeah.
you'll see like, oh, it's raining. That denotes the setting. I see a bottle on the ground. That's my mission, and you come up with like narrative hooks for that. A lot of ideas. I've got a lot of ideas.
Yeah, I feel that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, mine are all so insanely big that it's going to take me a decade to get them all in book form.
Yeah, that's
I'm jealous of the small form factor. I need to work in that
well. It's
direction.
been it's been several years of me just breaking down the form factor to
Yeah.
otherwise like I can't do it. You know what I mean? Like I can't
Yep,
make the
I get
big
it.
stuff.
You're
It's too
right.
hard. It's
Well, Tom, thank you so much for hanging out. Where can everybody find you on the interwebs?
well, I've got a website, tomlivery.com. I'm on Blue Sky predominantly, Instagram, the usual socials. It's just search my name, you'll find me. I just wanted to say as well while I'm here, like congratulations on how well Out of Orbit's been doing as well. That game's it's going
Thank
amazing.
you.
Like the artwork for that, stunning. The graphic design, like the color palette, I'm in love with. No, it's been a huge success. You should like be incredibly proud of that as well.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I am. It's been a wild ride, and I cannot wait to get that book out to people. I've been running an actual play the last 2 weeks, and this week, I guess tomorrow, at time of recording, is going to be the last episode that we record, and I'm already really sad because it's been so good and so fun, and it's like a TV show getting canceled because basically what
I'm
that's what it
I'm
is.
uniquely familiar with
Um,
that feeling. It's awful.
yeah, so it's been fun to develop. Been fun to do some play testing, and the campaign's been incredible. The community has been so supportive, and I adore Zine Quest and Zine Month. It has been,
It's an
yeah,
absolute joy.
it's my new favorite thing. It's so great. Well, thank you so much for being on, and thank you for your kind words. And I cannot wait to see what else you got coming in the future. And I can't wait to play this with like my kids. This is
Thank you
incredible.
so much for having me. It's been
Um,
an absolute pleasure.
and for everybody listening, thank you all. I hope you guys are having an incredible Zine month. We're already so deep into it. You can find everything from us over at oneshotstavern.com. We will see you guys next time.
Thanks, Andrew. Bye bye.